Hello, I'm Leslie Weston, and I'm in Ann Arbor, Michigan, in the United States of America, and I will be reading the 40th chapter of Jane of Lantern Hill by our beloved Lucy Maud Montgomery. At the end of a blue and silver day in March, Jane was doing her lessons in her room and feeling reasonably happy. She'd had a rapturous letter from Jody that morning. All Jody's letters were rapturous, giving her lots of interesting news about Queen's Shore. She'd had a birthday the week before, and now she was in her leggy teens. And 2 bits of luck had come her way that afternoon. Aunt Sylvia had taken her and Phyllis with her on a shopping expedition, and Jane had picked up 2 delightful things for Lantern Hill: a lovely old copper bowl and a comical brass knocker for the glass-paneled door. It was the head of a dog with his tongue hanging waggishly out and a real dog laugh in his eyes. The door opened, and Mother came in, ready dressed for a restaurant dinner party. She wore the most wonderful sheath dress of ivory taffeta, with a sapphire velvet bow at the back and a little blue velvet jacket over her lovely shoulders. Her slippers were blue, with slender golden heels, and she'd had her hair done in a new way, a sleek flat top to her head and a row of tricksy little curls around her neck. "Oh, Mums, you are perfectly lovely," said Jane, looking at her with adoring eyes. And then she said something she'd never intended to say, something that seemed to rush to her lips and say itself. "I do wish Dad could see you now." Jane pulled herself up in dire dismay. She had been told never to mention Dad to Mother, yet she had done it, and Mother was looking at her as if she had been struck in the face. "Oh, I do not suppose," said Mother bitterly, "that he would be at all interested in the sight." Jane said nothing. There seemed to be nothing she could say. How'd she know whether Dad would be interested in Mother or not? And yet, she was sure that he still loved Mother. Mother sat down on one of the chintz chairs and looked at Jane. "Jane," she said, "I'm going to tell you something about my marriage. Oh, I don't know what you've heard about the other side of it." There was another side of it, of course, but I want you to hear my side. It's better that you should know. I should have told you before, but it hurt me so." "Oh, don't tell me now if it hurts you, darling," said Jane earnestly, thinking, "Oh, I know more about that than you suppose." "But I must. There are some things I want you to understand, and I don't want you to blame me too much." "I don't blame you at all, Mother." "Oh, I was to blame a great deal. I see that now when it's too late. Oh, I was so young and foolish, just a careless, happy little bride. I ran away to be married to your father, Jane." Jane nodded. "How much do you know, Jane?" "Well, just that you ran away and you were very happy at first." "Happy? Oh, Jane Victoria, I was so happy. But it really was a very unfortunate marriage, dearest." "Oh, that sounds like something Grandmother said." "Oh, I shouldn't have treated my mother so. I was all she had left after my father died, but she forgave me." And then she set herself to work to make trouble between you and Dad. "But we were happy that first year, Jane Victoria. Oh, I worshipped Andrew. That smile of his. Oh, you know that smile." "Do I know it?" "We had so much fun together. Oh, reading poetry by driftwood fires down by the harbor. We always made a rite of lighting those candles. Oh, life was wonderful. I used to welcome the days then as much as I shrink from them now. We had only one quarrel that first year. I forget what it was about. Something silly. I kissed the frown on his forehead, and all was well again. I knew there was no woman in the world so happy as I was. If only it could have lasted. But why didn't it last, Mother?" I hardly know. Of course, I wasn't much of a housekeeper. But I don't think it was that. And I couldn't cook, but our maid didn't do too badly, and that little Aunt Em used to come in and help. She was a darling. And I couldn't keep a count straight ever. I would add up a column 8 times and get a different answer every time. But Andrew just laughed about that. And then you were born. And that made all the trouble, cried Jane, in whom that bitter thought had persisted and rankling. Oh, not at first. Oh, Jane Victoria, darling, not at first. But Andrew never seemed the same after. I wonder if it wasn't you who also had changed, Mother. Oh, he was jealous of my love for you. He was, Jane Victoria. Not jealous. No, not jealous. A little hurt. He didn't like to be second with you after he had been first. He thought he came in second then. He used to say, your child, your daughter, as if you weren't his. Why, he used to make fun of you. Once he said you had a face like a monkey. And no Kennedy can take a joke. But you hadn't. Oh, you were the cutest little thing. Why, Jane Victoria, darling, you were just a daily miracle. Oh, it was such fun to tuck you into your little Betty Bye at night, to watch you when you were asleep. And you were just a big darling baby yourself, weren't you, Mama? Andrew was angry because I couldn't go out with him as much as before. How could I? It would have been bad for you if I'd taken you and I couldn't leave you. But he didn't care, really. He never did, except for a little while at the first. Oh, he cared far more for that book of his than for me. He would shut himself up with it for days at a time, and he would forget all about me. And yet you think you're the only jealous one. I suppose I simply wasn't capable of living with a genius. Of course, I knew I wasn't clever enough for him. Irene let me see but she thought that. And he cared far more for Irene than he cared for me. Oh, no, not that. Never. She had far more influence over him than I had. He told her things before he told me, because she was always trying to pick them out before he was ready to tell anyone. He thought that I was such a child that if he had a plan, he would consult Irene before he consulted me. Irene made me feel like a shadow in my own house. She liked to humiliate me, I think. Oh, she was always so sweet and smiling. She would be. But she always blew my candles out. She patronized me. Don't I know it? I've noticed, she would say. Oh, that had such a sting, as if she'd been spying on me all along. Andrew said I was unreasonable, but I wasn't. But he always sided with her. Oh, Irene never liked me. She had wanted Andrew to marry some other girl. I was told that she said from the very first that she knew that our marriage would become a failure. And then she did her best to make that so. She kept pushing us apart, here a little, there a little. I was helpless. But not if you'd had the wee bit of a backbone, Mother. Andrew was ignored. He was annoyed because I didn't like her, and yet he hated my family. He couldn't speak of Mother without insulting her. Oh, he didn't want me to visit her, get presents from her. Money? Oh, Jane Victoria, that last year was dreadful. Andrew never looked at me as if he could help it, because it hurt him too much. It seemed as if I were married to a complete stranger. Oh, we were always saying bitter things to each other. Oh, that verse I read in the Bible last night. Death and life are in the power of the tongue. True. So true. And then Mother wrote and she asked me to come home for a visit. Well, Andrew said, go if you want to. Just like that. Oh, Irene said it would give things a chance to heal up. Oh, I can see her smiling when she said that. I went, and Mother wanted me to stay with her. She could see that I was so unhappy, and she took her chance. I couldn't go on living with a person who hated me, Queen Jane Victoria. I couldn't. So I wrote to him and I told him I thought it would be better for both of us if I didn't go back. I don't know. Nothing seemed real somehow. If he'd written and asked me to go back, but he didn't. I never heard from him again. That is, until that letter came asking for you. Jane had kept silence while Mother talked, thinking things at intervals. But now she could keep her silence no longer. He did write. He wrote and he asked you to come back, and you never answered. You never answered, Mother. Mother and daughter looked at each other in the silence of that big, beautiful, unfriendly room. After a little while, Mother whispered, I never got it, Jane Victoria. They said nothing more about it, but both of them knew quite well what had happened to that letter. Mother, it isn't too late yet. Oh, yes, it is too late, darling. Yes, it is. Too much time has come between us. Oh, I can't break with Mother again. She'd never forgive me again. And she loves me so. I'm all that she has. Nonsense! Jane was as brusque as any steward of them all. She has got Aunt Gertrude and Uncle William and Aunt Sylvia. Yeah, well, it's not the same, Jane. She didn't love their father, and I can't stand up to her. Besides, he doesn't want me anymore. We're strangers, and oh, Jane Victoria, life's slipping away. Like that, like just through my fingers. The harder I try to hold it, the faster it slips. I've lost you. Never, Mother. Yes, you belong more to him than to me now. I don't blame you. No, you can't help it, but you'll belong a little bit more to him every year. Till there will be nothing left of you for me. Grandmother came in. She looked at them both suspiciously. Have you forgotten that you are dining out, Robin? Yes, I think I had, said Mother strangely. But never mind. I remembered now. Oh, I shan't forget again. Grandmother lingered for a moment after her mother had gone out. What have you been saying to upset your mother, Victoria? Jane looked levelly at her grandmother. What happened to the letter that Father wrote Mother long ago, asking her to come back to him, Grandmother? Grandmother's cold, cruel eyes suddenly blazed. Oh, so that's it. Do you think it's any of your business exactly? Well, yes, I think it is, since I'm their child. I did what was right with that letter. I burnt it. She had seen her mistake. She had come back to me as I always knew she would. I was not going to have her misled again. Don't begin plotting, Victoria. I'm a match for all of you yet. No one is plotting, said Jane. There is just one thing I want to tell you, Grandmother. My father and my mother love each other yet. I know it. Grandmother's voice was ice. They do not. Your mother has been happy all these years till you began stirring up old memories. Leave her alone. She is my daughter. No outsider shall ever come between us again. Neither Andrew Stewart, nor you, nor anyone. And you will be good enough to remember